All right, Nuggets fans, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline and number 38. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am excited to talk about this weekend's games for the Denver Nuggets. They're going to face the Miami Heat tonight. They're going to face the Dallas Mavericks on Sunday. They're on a 3-game winning streak right now. Who would have thunk it? They have turned some things around and are 5-3, and Denver's current record would have them third, all by themselves in the in the Eastern Conference. But when you're in the Western Conference, that's a different story. We're going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about Jamal Murray and his potential return from a concussion after being in concussion protocol these last few games. We're going to talk about these games this weekend, and then we're going to bounce around the NBA, talk about some different things, including I saw a crazy poll and actually prediction for MVP after this first couple weeks of the season, and you'll never guess who's not first in the NBA in the MVP vote. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Really quickly, this podcast is brought to you by the good folks over at BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. Got a whole bunch of different props, got a whole bunch of different options. Head over to America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Once again, I am your host, Ryan Blackburn. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Would be awesome if you could hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below. Very curious to see Jamal Murray is questionable tonight. He's not yet slated to play, but this is usually how the Nuggets run their injury report. When somebody goes from out to questionable, it is most likely that they play in that game. So we will see what happens. The Mantis Lords is here. He says, "Hey, Ryan, hope you're having a good day." Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Absolutely appreciate it. Always nice to see some folks in the comments and having fun. Cedric at the beginning said, "Hope he's 100%. I hope too. But once you clear concussion protocol, like you're pretty good to go. You're pretty okay." Obviously, he took a big hit. The Nuggets are doing their due diligence in this, trying to help him clear it. And it just wouldn't surprise me if he comes back. And kind of looks like he never really left, but I think that Nuggets fans don't necessarily have the best impression from what Jamal Murray was doing during his initial run these last couple weeks. Dayon says, "Jamal is back. Good. Put him on the bench. Put him on the bench. Doesn't deserve to be out there with the starters." We'll get into that. Cedric asks, "Ryan, I got a question. Will Jamal be limited on minutes, or how well is he?" I can't speak to that in terms of like how he feels. My guess is that he'll probably they'll try to avoid playing him over 35. Like they're not going to go super long in terms of his minutes. My guess is that he'll probably be on a target of about 30 minutes when he does ultimately return. But the Nuggets don't necessarily have that much flexibility in terms of like, hey, if you're one of the main starters, if you have a lot of responsibility like Murray does, he's going to be out there. And I wanted to address it in this particular podcast because I think that there is a very important point that has to be made. Also, let's start with this first. Josie says, "Will the Nuggets' pace be slower with Murray? Will that benefit them or hurt them?" It will definitely be slower. I actually did some data work on this for an article that I did on another platform. In the first 4 games that Murray played this year, the Nuggets as a team were 25th in total pace. It's basically their average pace per 100 possessions, trying to measure out how many possessions the team is playing to measure, okay, are they playing fast? Are they playing slow? Are they getting up and down the floor, etc.? In the 3 games that Russell Westbrook has started, the Nuggets are ranked first in pace. And on the season, they're now 8th. And part of the reason for that is because you're playing Russell Westbrook in those minutes instead of Jamal Murray, but it's also the minutes where Denver doesn't have a point guard on the floor because Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, when those guys are out there together, it looks pretty good from a speed standpoint. It's not always perfect, but Denver's been able to get up and down the floor, and they don't really hold the ball that much. So it is fascinating to track and something that I will certainly be looking for. And so when Murray comes back, he's obviously going to slow some things down. That is going to happen. I don't know if he is not necessarily athletic enough, because I think he's athletic enough. I don't know if he's healthy enough at this stage of his career. The leg injuries that he has sustained throughout, and people kind of like brush this aside because they have very high expectations for Jamal. He's had ACL, multiple knee injuries, multiple ankle injuries, doing everything he can. Like, he tries to come back, he tries to play through a lot, but the wear and tear that's on his body at this point is very high. And that's going to ultimately slow him down. He can play at a certain pace now that the rest of the Nuggets probably, like, especially with a young group like they have, they want to play faster. But what I wanted to address initially, Nuggets fans have grown in an adversarial relationship to Jamal. He signed the contract. He has a big responsibility for the team. There's undoubtedly like disappointment around Nuggets fans about the way that he has played. Nuggets fans just want him to average 25, 5, and 5 initially. They want him to shoot 50% from 3. Why aren't you shooting 50% from 3, man? Like, you're getting paid to do way more than what you're doing. And I don't necessarily, I understand why fans are feeling that way about him, especially when you look at what happened in these last 3 games, where Denver played against Utah, Toronto, and then surprised everybody with OKC. Like, that was a tremendous win. And I don't know if they win that with Murray out there. I think that what Russell Westbrook did was truly impressive. Russell Westbrook scored more points than Jamal Murray has scored all season in that game. And you did it very efficiently on 15 shots. So I don't want to sit here and make excuses for Jamal. He has a responsibility for the team. He has a responsibility to the Nuggets and to himself to try to be the best version of himself that he can be. But I also want to give him the opportunity to do that, and an opportunity to try to assimilate into what the Nuggets are doing, as opposed to immediately writing him off and immediately just blaming him for something that, like, he got hit in the head, man. Like, Nuggets fans are mad that he's injury prone, and now they're mad that he's coming back because they finally started to play well. And I just think that it's been a lot. He has the weight of the world on his shoulders right now, and he hasn't handled it well. There's no doubt about it. But I also just want to see him get the opportunity to return, get the opportunity to get better. One of the things that he can do is speed up. Like, the Nuggets know that they need to play a little bit faster. And the numbers that I pulled, let me see if I can pull this up here really quick. Over the course of the last 5 years before this season, the Nuggets as a team have averaged, let me get it. Here's their pace in each of the last 5 seasons from 5 years ago to last year. 29th, 27th, 20th in the year that Murray missed, 24th, and 26th, respectively. They're a bottom 10 pace team almost all the time. And the only time when they were on the borderline of not being there was the year that Murray was gone. So I don't necessarily want to blame Murray for that entire thing. And pace isn't necessarily like a good or a bad thing. All fans want to play faster, but sometimes when you're a good half or like a great half court team like the Nuggets have been, as often as they are, when you can generate great shots out of the Jokic Murray two-man game as often as the Nuggets do, you don't necessarily need to play fast all the time. Denver was 24th in pace the year they won the championship. They were bottom 7. And so it doesn't necessarily it's not a good or a bad thing. However, I think for this season with Christian Brown, with Peyton Watson, with Julian Strawther, and especially with Russell Westbrook, I think the Nuggets are better accustomed to playing faster than they would have been otherwise. And so when Murray comes back and he comes back into this, he'll give them an element that allows them to play a little slower at times. And that is a good thing because sometimes you need to avoid the excess turnovers. Sometimes you need to get a good shot. Sometimes you need to set up Jokic in the right way. And there are times where Jokic doesn't get the ball as often as he needs to, or in the space where he wants it when other guys are on the floor. So this is something that they're going to have to figure out, that they're going to have to adjust to. And I think that Murray has just as much adjusting to do as anybody else. I want to see him play faster too. I want to see him play better. I want to see him hit some shots. I do think that his defense has been solid to start the season, but it's been 3 games off. We'll see where it's at when he does come back. But one thing, people talk about him being selfish. People talk about him being taking a whole bunch of shots and hot dogging and things like that, not necessarily delivering the ball to Jokic all the time. You know that he's averaging a career low usage rate right now? Career low. He's not taking a lot of shots. In terms of field goals per 100 possessions, he's taking the fewest of his career. He's taking the fewest 3-point attempts of his career. He's getting to the free throw line more frequently than he usually does. But I just don't subscribe to this notion that he's been selfish. I honestly think that he's been giving up the ball a lot and allowing Jokic and Porter and especially Gordon at times and especially Christian Brown at times to be a good version of themselves and to take advantage of their own matchups. Murray doesn't get in the way of a lot of what the Nuggets are doing on the offensive end. Now, he can slow some things down, and if he isn't the one to bring up the ball all the time, then I think the Nuggets will be better off. And I honestly think that involving Christian Brown in that a little bit more, Jokic obviously can bring the ball up. AG's out right now, but Peyton Watson, it would be a good experience for him to be bringing the ball up the floor most of the time. I think that there are some good things that can happen from Murray sort of taking a step back and allowing the freedom for the young guys to continue to grow. What people don't want to happen and what they shouldn't want to happen is for Murray to elevate that usage rate to career high levels, for him to get in the way of the development of Brown, Strawther, Watson, and to put those guys in the corner, to put those guys in situations where they aren't being involved. Murray actually has allowed for that to happen. And I don't hear a lot of people giving any credit to that, because why would they? I mean, look, it's all results oriented, and I understand that. Nobody is going to sit here. I'm not going to sit here and defend Jamal Murray excessively, but I am just seeing the reaction over here, and I'm like, okay, let's bring it back just a little bit. Let's not necessarily go overboard on this. There are way more things that can happen than that. This sentiment is completely understandable. Murray is a $50 million player. He should be able to run with the second unit. So funny that he's played 21 minutes so far this year without Jokic. They're a -8. They're a -8. It's not like it's been unbelievably bad. And he only played his minutes without Jokic when he was with Dario Saric. And Dario was really bad. So I wonder if there's some flexibility there in terms of being able to put him with the second unit when he's with Zeke Naji, when he's with Michael Porter, when he's with Julian Strawther and some of these other guys. Maybe there's a different lineup that the Nuggets can get to that doesn't include Dario. And maybe that would help Jamal Murray. However, I do think that the Jamal and Dario lineup does need to be explored once again, because I think that Russ and Dario clearly doesn't work, and I doubt that it will ever work. I don't know what's ultimately going to happen with it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think that what Nuggets fans should want, Murray's making $50 million a year. You should want him integrated as fast as possible here. You should want to pull the Band-Aid off and be like, all right, it may not look good in the first couple games, but you need to figure out a way to get everybody to assimilate together, to blend what you figured out with the main, like with the current group that's playing really fast, and then with Murray. You have to figure it out at some point. That'll be interesting. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to preview this weekend. We're going to preview the Miami game and the Dallas game and talk about what is going on for the Nuggets in those matchups. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. And we're back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. You know that meme where you have the guy like standing up in a courtroom? It looks like a painting. He looks like he's standing up in a courtroom amidst a whole bunch of other people. And he says something so stunning and so brave, but he's on his own. He's by himself. That's how I feel about Jamal Murray and like saying he's not the worst player of all time sometimes. Where like clearly I am on my own on that one in Nuggets land. Clearly that is a take where the comments were not very happy. They were not very happy that I said, hey, he's not the worst player ever. Sorry, guys, he's not. He'll figure it out. The Nuggets will figure it out for sure. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about Miami tonight. Let's talk about Dallas on Sunday. Miami's okay. They're not this amazing team that has gone through a whole bunch. Like they're just an okay team at this point. They're 3-4, which puts them tied for 6th in the East, by the way. 3-4. They have been okay. They're on a 2-game losing streak. Their most previous losses were to Phoenix and to, let me just pull it up here. They lost a very close game to Sacramento. That wasn't the Vivek Ranadive game where he was wearing the shirt that said "They Not Like Us," but this was a 111 to 110 game. I think this was Domantas Sabonis hitting a game winner off of an offensive rebound, which is hilarious. But yeah, like Miami at this point, they are figuring some things out still. Jimmy Butler at times is taking a bunch of shots, but at times he is not. At times they're trying to figure out where he fits into the grand scheme of things. He has a very interesting play style where sometimes he's going to remove himself from the formula if it makes sense for him to do so. And sometimes he's going to remove himself from the formula even if it doesn't make sense. So I don't know what version of Jimmy Butler the Nuggets are going to see, but I do know what version of Bam Adebayo they're going to get, who's a hard-nosed SOB who is absolutely going to make Jokic work. He's going to do everything he can to try to slow down Jokic in that matchup. And it just wouldn't surprise me if Jokic, who's already kind of the efficiency stats for Joker are a little bit low. It wouldn't surprise me if they stayed lower or if he just takes fewer shots in a game like this one because the ball is getting denied to him a little bit and he's being forced to really adjust to some different things. That wouldn't surprise me in any stretch of the word. I think that Peyton Watson's obviously going to be big in this one, matching up with Jimmy Butler, but Christian Brown even more so. He'll match up with Tyler Hero, I believe, and that is going to be an interesting matchup. Hero on the year is doing a lot from a usage standpoint. He might have the highest usage on the team, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 27.1% usage for Tyler Hero, and he's been really good. 66% true shooting, 26% assist rate. Hero is the guy for the offense in Miami right now. He's the first option. And what he does from a three-point shooting standpoint, like he has been jacking up the threes. On average, 8.7 3-point attempts per game for Tyler Hero. Terry Rozier right behind him at 7.6 3-point attempts per game. The Heat as a team, they're only taking the 13th most, but that's because Jimmy Butler's averaging 1.7 threes per game. Bam Adebayo's averaging 2.1. I'm not expecting that to be that high, but it wouldn't surprise me if he takes some threes tonight against Nikola, as Nikola kind of dares him to shoot. And Bam will probably be reminded of the Team USA versus Team Serbia exhibitions, or not exhibitions, but like matchups over the summer. So keep that in mind when you're talking about this. True Teller asks, Ryan, are they going to double team Jokic or face guard him? I think that they're going to bracket him. I think that this is something that works reasonably well against teams that can't really fire in an entry pass and can't really space the floor that much. I think that the Heat are going to use Bam Adebayo to try to front or play 3-quarter on him, which is basically trying to make that entry pass as difficult as possible. It can happen, but you're probably going to play over and do all those things. And then they'll probably rotate somebody from behind to try to bracket as much as possible. That does mean that they should probably play a little bit bigger. Maybe it's Jovic who comes over and helps. Maybe it's Butler who comes over and helps. But it just wouldn't surprise me if they try to limit Joker's shots as much as possible. And so what that says to me is I think that they are going to, I think we're going to see a high assist game for Jokic. I think we are going to see a whole bunch of 3 attempts for the Nuggets starters this time. And whether that's Michael Porter Jr., I think he gets up 10 plus. If Jamal Murray comes back, I think he'll be taking some threes. If Christian Brown just had 4 of 8 from 3 in this last matchup, so he's shooting the ball with confidence. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets them up. And then Peyton Watson, that is one where I think that he'll be in a stressful matchup this time, where either the Heat are going to leave him from 3, or he's going to be kind of contested, half contested, and he's going to have to make some tough decisions. Overall, I hope that Peyton continues to cut. I hope he continues to try to find space underneath the defense and behind the defense, kind of like what Aaron Gordon does, but I don't necessarily expect it. So it's going to be fascinating to see who kind of breaks down that scoring. If it's Russ and he's out there, then I got to imagine that he's going to be cutting a ton, because there's going to be times where the Heat go 2-3 zone. There's going to be times where they're doing the fronting defense on Jokic and trying to deny him the ball, and that's going to leave some cutting lanes and some spot-up lanes behind him. So if Russ is going to hit some threes, then cool. But I also think that he's just going to be very good from a cutting perspective. The Heat are not necessarily a great rim protection team, especially if Bam is very focused on Jokic. They're going to have some other things that they're going to have to manage. Jovic is not a great rim protector. They've got some other guys on their second unit that are not great rim protectors either. So it'll be fascinating to track. I'm going to go ahead and predict that Michael Porter Jr. and Julian Strawther especially are going to be big in this one. Just the spacing threats, the guys that can understand and see a zone and see the gaps in the defense when teams are over helping. And they'll probably get some threes up. Julian Strawther especially, if he hit 4 or 5 threes in this game tonight, it wouldn't surprise me. It might surprise the Heat. Actually, it probably won't surprise the Heat, because Spoelstra has them very committed to the defensive end and understanding what the tendencies and what you're supposed to do. But it's ultimately going to come down to, for Denver, are they going to hit those threes? Are they going to hit those shots? If they miss all of them, it becomes a little bit more difficult. And I don't know if Denver's defense is going to be good enough to really manage that. But yeah, we will see what ultimately happens. But I think that Russell Westbrook goes back to being a 6-man. If Murray plays tonight, Murray will play. He'll have some opportunities to kind of probably be on the strong side in some of those plays. I'm very curious to see how that goes. All right, let's go to Dallas. Dallas is the one that I think everybody's obviously Miami's happening tonight, but Dallas is one where, in all honesty, the Nuggets might overlook Miami a little bit because, like, yes, Miami is a team that played them in the NBA Finals, but the relationship between Denver and Miami versus Denver and Dallas, I think, is very distinct. I think in general that Dallas matchup is going to be, so Denver's played OKC already. They've played Minnesota already. Then they played OKC again. Now they play Dallas. That's going to be fascinating. Kyrie Irving's been very good to start the season for them. Luka Doncic has not been very good. He has shot the ball relatively inefficiently for what he usually does. If I just pull up his numbers on the side here, he's shooting 40% from the field and 32.9% from three. Now, he gets up a whole bunch of threes, so it kind of drags up that efficiency a little bit, and he gets to the free throw line 8 times. So, he's still doing okay. But the actual shooting efficiency on two-pointers has been way down for the start of his career. So it puts a lot of pressure on Peyton Watson. Can he be strong enough to guard him on a consistent basis? Can Peyton Watson be a guy that dissuades Luka from going into the post, navigating into the pick and roll, and just carving out space on the offense and doing what he needs to do to get these 8-foot floaters or quick step back fallaways, things like that, things that he's really well known for. This is going to be the toughest assignment for Peyton Watson so far this year. He's the guy that I'll be watching, no doubt about it. I think that if he can limit Luka to what his averages are, then the Nuggets should be in pretty good position. Right now, what Luka's averages are 28.6 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. If that's what Luka does, then Denver should be okay as long as they are disciplined in other areas. It actually wouldn't surprise me if the Nuggets decided to switch that matchup and have Christian guard Luka a little bit more frequently and have Peyton guard Kyrie Irving. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Now, Denver's got some mismatches in that. I assume that if Murray isn't back by tonight, then he will be back by Sunday. And so will Murray be able to guard Kyrie? Not really. Will Michael Porter be able to guard Luka? Probably not. There have been times where Mike has done a pretty good job, but I think that Luka's very much over that matchup in terms of being able to navigate it. He will shoot the step back three. He'll hit a bunch of them, and the Nuggets are going to have to get used to that. But what helps Denver in this matchup is the injuries that Dallas is currently facing. In the Friday matchup tonight, so Denver plays them on Sunday. Friday matchup tonight, Derek Lively is out. PJ Washington is out. Maxi Kleba is doubtful. That is something where Denver I think can take advantage of from a size perspective. Daniel Gafford will start for them, and who they started in this last game, Dallas, was Najee Marshall at the 4, Klay Thompson at the 3, and then Luka and Kyrie in the backcourt. That's going to be very fascinating, very interesting to see. And I'm looking forward to that matchup. I'm looking forward to seeing if that holds. Can Denver keep up with the Dallas offense, and can they score on them consistently? I think that, look, if Jokic can't go up against Daniel Gafford and Najee Marshall and Klay Thompson and find a way to score efficiently, then I'll be surprised. But Najee Marshall and Klay Thompson have done a pretty good job defensively to start this season, and they're able to match up and be better than guys like Kyrie and Luka. Luka, I think, has been better on the defensive end to start the year than he usually is, but he's still a weak link. So I'm curious to see how the Nuggets handle it, what they're able to do. Can they keep up with what the Dallas offense is going to be? If they can, and Denver goes 7-3 in the first 10 games, I didn't think that it was any way that they would go 7-3 when they dropped to 2-3 after the Minnesota loss. Like, winning 5 games in a row and going and 5-0 on the homestand, that'd be crazy, especially without Gordon for several of those games and without Murray. So obviously can't overlook Miami right now. Got to take it one game at a time. And hopefully when Murray comes back, it doesn't really upset the apple cart that much for what the Nuggets are trying to do. But I do think that if they can get through Miami and then Dallas, they've got 4 days off after that. They've got 4 days. They can take breaks. They can have some practices. They can do what they need to do in order to take a step back and relax and then get everybody up to speed at that point. If they can just get through the weekend, that's where things really get going. So they'll have 4 days off, and then after that, we can start talking about the in-season tournament, which will be very, very interesting for Denver. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to go around the NBA, stop talking about the Nuggets for a little bit, and I want to talk about some of the other teams that the Nuggets are facing in the Western and Eastern Conference to start the season. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. Final segment, Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below. Would really, really appreciate it, everybody. All right, let's go into this, the around the NBA segment. So, saw a funny thing this morning. Did you know that Nikola Jokic is third on somebody's MVP ballot right now? Third. This is the Sean Powell of NBA.com. He put out his ballot to start the season, and like this is just a thing where the Nuggets are doing like because of the way that they started, because of the first couple of games, Jokic kind of gets he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. Number one on this ballot is Anthony Davis, which is pretty funny because Anthony Davis started the season off pretty good too. Like he and Jokic were going back and forth in terms of who was playing the best. And then Davis got hurt. and the Lakers are now 4-4. And the Nuggets are 5-3. So it's really funny that Jokic, who like the Nuggets clearly started off slow. Yeah, they're 5-3. Anthony Davis, yeah, the Lakers started fast. Yeah, they're 4-4. What are we doing here? What is this? I don't understand. So I don't really care because this is just one person's opinion, but it really does show where narratives start, and that for people that don't necessarily look that hard at the standings and it's more based off of feel, I understand it. But then you look at what they're actually doing, what the numbers actually are. That's pretty crazy. But by the way, Jokic is third. Jason Tatum is second. Jason Tatum is second in the NBA in the MVP vote for Sean Powell of NBA.com to start the season. Let me read off Jason Tatum's numbers for you really quick. He's averaging 30 points. Really good to start the season. 7 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 48.3% from the field, 36.9% from 3, and 78% from the line. Really good numbers. Like, I mean, it is the best start to his season in his NBA career. Like, the efficiency is higher than what you would expect. He also just doesn't have the overall impact on the game that any of the other MVP candidates do. And so it's why he's never really sniffed an MVP. So despite that, I mean, he has had a really good start to the season. I don't want to bemoan that. And yet, like, Boston is only 7-2. Despite the fact that they started off really, really well, like, they're not out of the league of everybody in the entire NBA at this point. Like, they did just lose to Golden State on their own home floor. So this isn't like, I don't know. It is just very funny the way that those things go. But yeah, I would not be ascribing a vote to Tatum if I had an opportunity to vote for Jokic, because while Tatum is averaging 37 and I'll round it up to 5, Jokic is averaging 29, 13, and 11. So that's one fewer point per game on basically the same efficiency, and the overall impact is it's decidedly different. So look, it's fine, is what it is. The rest of the MVP ballot, by the way, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who the Nuggets just saw, and Donovan Mitchell. Cleveland is 5-0, or not 5-0, 9-0 to start the season. They are the only undefeated team left in the entire NBA. They've been tremendous, man. I think they beat the Celtics, if I'm not mistaken, earlier on. And the Celtics are only 7-2. Third place in the Eastern Conference right now, by the way. 4-4. There are 9 teams in the Western Conference that are above 500 right now. Yeah, third place in the Eastern Conference is 4-4. Part of that is because the Bucks and the Sixers have sucked. They've sucked so far this year. Milwaukee's 2-6. Philly is 1-6, and they've got immense injury issues at this point. And I just don't know where, both of those teams will get reinforcements at some point. Like for Milwaukee, Chris Middleton has not played yet, but they also should be better at understanding what to do without Chris Middleton by this point. Like Damian Lillard is still a very good point guard. Giannis Antetokounmpo is still a very good player. Like he's a great player. It's not quite Jokic, but he's great. But Brook Lopez looks like a different version of himself. Last game, they just benched Gary Trent Jr. And so I think that they're going to be making a trade relatively soon. And it just wouldn't surprise me if they felt and looked a little bit different after December 15th, for example. They're going to have to figure some stuff out, but they don't have any picks to trade. So going to be interesting to see whether they can. And then Philly, of course, Philly will be fine overall, but they're losing Tyrese Maxey for a couple of weeks. They already lost Embiid. He's going to be back on Tuesday, I believe, but so they've got at least another couple of games that they have to survive without him. But even when he comes back, there's just no margin for error. What are they, 1-6 still? The 1-6 is crazy. 1-6 is a crazy number for a team like that. They're the worst team in the NBA outside of Utah, who's 1-7. So I'm monitoring that for sure. I'm trying to figure out what the Eastern Conference is going to look like, what they're going to be ultimately doing, and if they can survive. By the way, Chicago and Orlando are each 3-6 right now. They're tied for 9th in the Eastern Conference. That is just what I wanted to say. 3-6 gets you 9th place in the East. That's insane. In the West, the Suns, the Thunder, and the Warriors are tied at 7-1. Denver gave OKC their first loss, obviously, on Wednesday. But the Warriors have been way better than I thought they would be. I thought the Suns would be pretty good, but I didn't expect them to go 7-1. I figured that they would maybe drop 1 or 2 more of these. And the feeling after that loss that they had, the Suns, was that, oh man, things are not looking good. And then they were fine. And they've been fine since then. There's still some weaknesses for the Suns with Yusuf Nurkic. They need somebody better at center in order to actually win anything. But right now what they're doing, they've got a great mix of guards and forwards. They've got a really, really great mix. The Thunder, we obviously know how good they are. The Warriors, I was just surprised. They have so much depth right now. Buddy Hield looks great in that system. He plays just as well, if not better, than Klay Thompson. So there's something to be said for that. Houston, Dallas, Minnesota, Sacramento, and Denver are all tied at 5-3. All of them. And so it can go any number of different directions. I expect Dallas, Minnesota, and ultimately Denver to continue to rise above that. But that's going to be about what the kind of 3-6, 3-7 range is going to look like for the West. I don't expect the Suns to drop off that much. I don't expect the Warriors to drop off that much, although I think they're more liable to do so because I just don't trust all of their talent. But I do think that the West is just look at that. It's pretty strong, pretty tough. Going to be very difficult to navigate that. And Denver, it's why some of these games are so important for Denver. It's why the games that they have won by the skin of their teeth against Toronto, against Brooklyn, and then against OKC have all been so important because one game could make the difference right now between like ninth and third. And that's insane. That is a crazy thing to say, but that's life in the West. That's just how it goes. The Lakers have dropped down to 4-4 after what was a solid start. D'Angelo Russell is going to get traded there. He's not going to be there for that long. But then that's something that I've said about them for what feels like every year the last 5 years or so. Obviously, he hasn't been there for the entire time, but I do think that at this point, Denver, they don't really have to worry about the Lakers. They never really have. But until D'Angelo Russell is off that team and they can actually replace him with somebody else that's talented and smart and does the right thing for their system, I don't know what they do. They are not good. All right. Circling back to the Nuggets now. Todd has asked this question a couple times. Is there any truth to the Lonnie Walker IV rumors concerning Denver being interested in signing him? Yes, there are. I have addressed this previously. I do not expect Lonnie Walker to be in the NBA until 2025, until next year. Like, not the next season, but like after the turn of the calendar. I think that one of the issues there is with the money, and the Nuggets have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of adding him a little bit too soon, because what he's able to do for them might be outweighed by some of the problems with the money in terms of bringing him in. It's one of the things that held up Boston from retaining him. So I think that they're going to have to manage that. They're going to have to figure it out. But yes, they do have interest. Denver does need to add to their bench in some way, whether it's a forward that they can trust, whether it's a guard that can score like Lonnie Walker, whether it's a center that maybe the next center will be good. But I think that they are still trying to manage it. So we'll see. We'll see what ultimately happens with it. But folks, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll. Hope everybody enjoyed. Look, Murray is going to be back. I hope the Nuggets fans embrace it with an open mind and don't immediately close themselves off to the possibility that he could be good. Murray's been really, really helpful for the Nuggets over the course of his career. He may not be an all-star. He may just never be that. And if Nuggets fans kind of get that through their heads and stop prescribing the high expectations and just appreciate what he does provide, it might be healthier at this point. But we're going to find out. We're going to find out together. Hopefully Murray can hold up his end of the bargain and he can deliver some good things for the Nuggets when he does return. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I will talk to you guys very soon.